Good morning. Today I'm going to talk about the Jacobean Idyll design and my influences and how this was designed. Now, as usual, I don't normally design totally from scratch. It's usually from a piece that I research in a castle or country house or museum. And I'm trying to reach the authentic stitches combined with the authentic colours and bring a design to life and bring it to your attention, really. And I think that was the inspiration behind my early designs, especially, some of which we're now bringing out as kits. So some of my early designs were just born of passion and all about trying to interpret and understand and reach the embroiderer, actually. Eventually, I started to think about the person who was actually making these, who was designing. It wasn't the same person as the stitcher. Who was the apprentice? Who was stitching what on a large piece? It was a team that made these pieces. Some areas have very amateurish stitching, and some absolutely beautiful stitching. So what was the mental attitude behind the whole thing? Who was buying them? You know, it really sparked my interest in history, which really stopped around the time of Henry VIII at school, because I think I stopped school about then. So I've learned most of my history through needlework. So I'm really, really privileged to do that. The Idyll design is named Idyll because in a lot of history books they decide to call the scene or describe the scene as an idyllic scene. That phrase is used again and again and again. So an idyllic scene is one where you can see plenty of food, plenty of places to hunt, beauty, nothing too threatening, and man controlling nature, and enjoying himself, or herself. So in this scene, there are some animals, and it's really inspired by the Muncaster bed hanging in Muncaster Castle. And that is also a much larger design. So if you're tempted to make the bed hanging, you might like to try this first as a training project, although the instructions are very similar. So if you really want to make the bed hanging, just go ahead and make it, because I'm sure you will, and everybody's loving it that's making it already. But this one, it makes a pillow, so you could perhaps the other alternative is to buy the printed linen of this design if you're already doing the Muncaster, because you could use up the wools. Anyway, we're going to look at what's inside the kit, and every time I do this, I think of poor Georgie and Frankie and Katie packing these so beautifully with so much love, and here I'm ripping it open. So we'd love you to reuse everything, so don't rip it open, just carefully. And we try really to reduce our use of plastic, but we really have to know that that we've got to keep the things in absolutely perfect condition. So we're looking at all sorts of different packaging alternatives at the moment. So if I take the wools out, you'll see that the wool colours are very similar to the Muncaster bed hanging. Here we go. So the wool colours are fabulous in this design, going from blues to a very bright blue occasionally, back to pale, and then into the greeny blues, the sea greens and the deep green at the top. So you can see the strength of the blues balance the strength of the greens, and similarly with all these different reds and pinks. And reds and pinks are very difficult colours in dyes and in crewel work. These are colour fast, but when I started recreating these pieces, the colour red was always on my mind, because I kept asking Appletons to actually have new colours for me. And Peter of Appletons, of those old days, he said, if you find a new colour, Phillipa, I will dye it for you. And I thought, oh gosh, that's amazing, how wonderful. You know, he's got such a big company and I'm such a minnow, and I was just starting, that I thought that he would really, that was very generous of him. Anyway, I never did find another red, because these are the true reds of the historic colours, and I actually am always still looking. So the colours on this piece are from the original Muncaster bed hanging, and really these yellows through the blues through into a sort of sea green, what they're known as a Jacobean green actually, and then down into the blues, and the occasional very bright blue are most attractive on this. And I find blue very, very calming and a lovely colour for times of stress. And when you're stitching with it, it just sort of talks back to you. The shading on this piece is all marked in as usual, but unusually for us, we actually just show you where the colour changes are on these little dotted lines so that you can actually go down on this very dense piece of stitching down the middle and just see where the colours go. And it just keeps you from wandering about and it keeps the shape of each of these hummocks because you need to follow the curve and make a long and a shorter stitch. And it's rather like painting with the needle, actually. And people who are relaxed and carefree will find this really easy. If you're very stressed, I suggest you have a glass of wine or a gin and tonic or something, whatever you like, margarita perhaps, and just enjoy it and go with the flow. The original piece was stitched by professionals. It was with a slightly thicker wool, and so the scale is all slightly bigger, but the wools used on this are the Appleton's wools, and they're very sympathetic and they don't need to be used by professionals because the shading goes through each other and the needle just pierces through the previous colour and two colours create a third colour where the two colours mix over. So it's really doing your job for you, and that's why I love doing crewel work.